I could just sit and wait for all your goodness, hope to feel your presence. I could just stay right where I am and hope to feel you, hope to feel something again. I could hold on to who I am and never let you change me from the inside. I could be safe, oh, I could be safe here in your arms and never leave home, never let these walls down. But you have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. You have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord, where you lead me, where you lead me, Lord. I could hold on to who I am and never let you change me from the inside. I could be safe, oh, I could be safe here in your arms and never leave home, and never let these walls down. But you have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. It doesn't take a trophy to make you proud. I'll never be more loved than I am right now. Going through a storm, but I won't go down. I hear your voice carried in the rhythm of the wind to call me out. You would cross an ocean so I wouldn't drown. You've never been closer than you are right now. Jireh, you are enough. Jireh, you are enough. And I will be content in every circumstance. Jireh, you are enough. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough. I don't wanna forget how I feel right now. On the mountaintop, I can see so clear what it's all about. So stay by my side when the sun goes down. I don't wanna forget how I feel right now. Jireh, you are enough. Jireh, you are enough. And I will be content in every circumstance. Jireh, you are enough. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough. I'm already loved. I'm already chosen. I know who I am. I know what you've spoken. I'm already loved more than I could imagine. And that is enough. I'm already loved. I'm already chosen. I know who I am. I know what you've spoken. I'm already loved more than I could imagine. And that is enough. Jireh, you are enough. Jireh, you are enough. You are enough. God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. can see your heart in everything you made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. Oh, and as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you've said. If it all reveals your nature so alive, I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I. The stars are made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. The oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still falls shine, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. God of salvation, you've chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I can see your heart in everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart 8 billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. Heavenly Father, we thank you for everything that you do for us, for loving us. You say that we are enough because you are. Thank you for your mercy and your grace. In your name, amen.
Good morning. I almost missed my cue. I was still getting a little teary-eyed about that song. So it's so good to see you all this morning. My name's Dee, if you haven't met me. Small group starts tomorrow, which is very exciting. We're back to small group. So it's going to be at the home of Sally and Nelson Shake. If you don't know the address, just let us know and we'll get you directions. Dinner will be served tomorrow, so you don't have to try to get off of work and rush through dinner. If you have kids, it's kid-friendly. There's tons of places for them to play. So come out and join us. It's very nice. It's a great group. I really like it. So come on out at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. It's Monday instead of a Sunday this time. Trying a different thing. We'll see how it works. Thank you for everyone I must have sounded really sad last week because I got a lot of volunteers to help with the kids. I can't believe it. So anyway, I am going to kind of put together a schedule. If you want to text me, if you know you're going to be out a Sunday, I'm just kind of trying to figure out when to schedule folks. And I know I have to work around a lot of schedules. So just let me know. That would be great. I would like for you to put on October's coming. It's fall, except for Savannah didn't get the memo, and here we are. It's going to be almost 90 today. But we're going to ignore that. We're going to stay inside and think of all the fall things. Fall Festival is coming October the 26th. It's a Thursday night. So while you're at the store, if you can pick up some candy, that would be great. And then if you are willing to decorate your trunk and hand out candy to the kids, just let me know. And then fill out a Connect card if you don't get our occasional emails so you know what's going on here, and drop it in the offering box if you like us. Support us by giving in the offering boxes or online, and invite a friend. Thanks.
So of all of the different types of people that there are, we are starting a new series this week, and it is called Mean People, because that's who we're going to talk about. We're going to spend a couple of weeks talking specifically about how to handle the mean people in your life, right? And this idea was inspired by... I don't just pastor. On the side, I give tours around Savannah, driving tours. So people hop in my car and I spend a few hours just driving them around town, showing them stuff. And, as you're driving around downtown in the historic district, there's a lot of traffic patterns and other, bicycles and segways and walkers and trolleys and all of this other stuff, along with all the congestion of regular car traffic. And so as I'm going around downtown, I find little spots that I can pull over and point at things and talk to people. A lot of times those spots are yellow curbs, so nobody else is parked there, or I'll pull into an empty parking spot and point. Well, there's these cars that drive around, and they're the little white cars that have the City of Savannah logo on the side of them. And it's their job to make sure everybody's following every rule exactly right. And sometimes I've been sitting by a yellow curb talking about something, and one of those cars will pull up and be like, hey, can't be here. And for the most part, all of the different people I've interacted with in those cars are really, they're all right about it. They go on the, hey, can't be here, we're going to have to keep moving. The most are nice, except one. There's one, and me and her, we have a thing. Yeah. And she rolls up and she puts her window down and looks over, and it looks like her morning started by being woken up by Mike Tyson slapping her upside the head. I mean, she is angry from the get-go, and when she addresses me, it is not nice. And all of my white male privilege rises up inside of me when somebody tries to tell me what to do, right? And I'm just, and so, me and her will butt back and forth, and she just isn't kind about it at all. She is mean, and she has gotten to know my vehicle, and now when she sees me, she will start following me all around my whole route the whole time and just follow me, right? And so that's really difficult for me because my reaction is, okay, I've got to keep giving this tour to these people and telling them this information, but my mind is going, what can I do and say to this person? How can I get back at this person? How can I get my point of my annoyance across? Like, how can I respond to this, right? Now, we all have mean people somewhere in our life, right? We do. For me, it's that situation when I'm trying to work. Some of you have people at your places of employment who are just mean, right? Come out of the gate, just Sometimes it's in our families. There's mean people. Sometimes it's in your friend circle that they're around. And I'm talking about people who are just like flat out unpleasant, right? Ones who are deceptive, ones who control you with, could be your time that they have control over, or money, or kids, people who are users and just suck everything up, right? They're just unkind. The kind of people when you just see them coming, like everything inside of you just tenses up, the anxiety rises, and you just want to do anything other than interact with these people. Now, to be clear, I am not saying that sometimes we aren't mean, right? Certainly we all have our moments. In fact, there may be somebody that listens to this sermon and you're the person that pops in their head as the example of the mean person, right? Hopefully not. I know most of you pretty well. I don't think it's any of you. But we're going to talk about how we can generally live our lives in such a way that when we're together with other people, we're not the mean ones, right? That we're not the ones people have those feelings about. So not discounting our moments of meanness. We all have them. We need to own them, make adjustments and all of that. But for the next couple of weeks, we're going to focus on this. That is, how should you respond or react to mean people? There's people in your life that you just want to avoid. Now, the reason that this is so important for us to spend a couple weeks talking about is this, is that we all have these people in our life somewhere, and if we're unprepared, if we don't have a plan, if we haven't thought this out about how to react, and maybe in cases if we're not proactive about it, then the mean people in our life will gain a measure of control over us. They will. Before you know it, you will actually start acting the way that they do when they're around and in response to them, right? And in that moment, when you start acting like that and matching their meanness and the way they treat people, it feels as if there's no choice. If you haven't thought about it, if you haven't pre-planned, like it feels like there's no choice. It's the natural reaction. And the reason it feels like that is because it is the natural reaction. And when you tell people your story, hey, this is what's going on, and this is what this mean person did to me, and this is what I did in response, their response is going to be like, well, yeah, of course that's what you did in response. You had no other choice. You had to respond that way. And the reason that it feels that way, that you don't have any other choice, and you're just doing what you've got to do to be able to get through the situation, is that mean people keep us off balance. Right? You never are fully balanced when you're around mean people, right? We don't necessarily know what we're walking into when you're going into their office or showing up at their house. You never know what you're going to get. We don't know how to respond. They might lean heavy one way, which makes us have to kind of lean the other because we're off balance. We're trying to force balance ourselves to compensate, right? With whatever it is that they're throwing out. This is why when you have these types of people in your life and you're around them, Like when you're in those moments, you don't feel like yourself because you're not yourself. You're always having to compensate. You're always having to try and rebalance yourself. You're always having to try and gain your footing, right? There are times, especially if you have a spouse and this is in some kind of family situation and you leave and they're just like, man, you are just, anytime they're around, you are not you. You're somebody else. It's because you're always off balance by these types of people and you're trying to compensate. I mean, it's literally the emotional equivalent of if you were standing there physically and somebody came up and just shoved you off balance, your body is naturally going to react and do whatever you got to do and wave some arms to try and regain your balance and get yourself upright. And none of us look graceful when we're waving our arms trying to gain our balance. But that's what we do in so many relationships, right? And when we're in those situations and people are mean and people do those things, like our initial reaction, if we just go with what is natural, isn't great, right? And when you are dealing with somebody who is mean, it really, really feels like the golden rule doesn't apply in that situation. You know, we all know the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you, right? It's a great rule. We try to teach our kids this rule. It's great until somebody mistreats you. It's great until somebody mistreats someone you love, right? And then all of a sudden, it's not so much the golden rule. It's more the iron rule, right? Do unto others as they have done unto you. Right? And not only does the iron rule feel natural, but in that moment, it seems right. And it seems fair. And it seems like justice. Right? Because they have done, there has to be retribution. And so we feel that way. It feels, the word I would put on it is it feels even. If I respond in like, then we're even. Right? And in our minds, we're like, even means balanced, but it doesn't really, right? And then we're mistreated in a relationship. We try and compensate, but something that tends to happen with all of that is as we're compensating for somebody that might mistreat us and is a mean person, one of the things we tend to do is we don't necessarily compensate with the actual person that threw us off. Right? What we end up doing is we compensate with somebody else in a completely separate relationship. Right? And what we're saying with our actions when we do that is I'll take it out on you because I can't take it out on them. If you're in a position to where it's a boss who's a mean person, you can't do that. Your job's on the line. So when you get home, you'll take it out on whoever is the first one there when you walk in the door, right? When you're in different family situations, I can't take it out on that family member. Dynamics aren't right. Who do I have dominion over? And we spin that way. And we take it out on them. Not intentionally. We're not trying to be the mean people. It's reaction. It's how we respond in the natural, right? And we don't realize it, but what has happened is we're not doing unto others as we would have others do unto us. We're not doing unto others what others have done to us. We're doing unto this other what some other has done. And around and around and around the whole thing goes. And it just keeps going. And we've all been there at some level, right? We've all experienced this to some degree or another in life. So here's the question that we're going to address for the next couple of weeks. What do we do? Right, what do we do about mean people? You know, maybe it's your ex, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's a boss, maybe it's an in-law, and you can't extract yourself from the relationship. Like you're in it, it's there, there's no just avoiding. What do you do? Now, I will admit, it is a lot of fun to sit and daydream about getting even with the mean people. Was that a Freudian slip? Yeah. Some of it is evil, because I'm like, How honest do I want to be as a pastor here? So after she harassed me for a while, following me around at my door, I was leaving downtown and I saw her harassing somebody else. There was a poor dude trying to load up a ladder in front of a house downtown, and there were no closed spots, and so he had parked she's sitting there writing up her ticket for him. And I thought, man, like, I need to follow her. And then when she takes a walk to go look at a couple of what spots are expired, I'm like, I wonder if the little pocket knife I have in my car will take out her tires. Listen, I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's natural. No, I didn't say it out loud. It's natural. Like, it's human nature. You want to get even. You want to balance something. You want to get back at. Like, why is she so mean? You guys, you feel me, right? Right. But the problem is, and you know this, getting even only makes us even with somebody that we don't even like. So what do? You can't ignore them, right? If you're in one of those types of relationships with them where you can't ignore them, like, it's nearly impossible to just ignore somebody that's being like that towards you. B, if you try, they'll just keep chipping and chipping and chipping and chipping and chipping and chipping at you until eventually you break and you react. And then what came out a little bit at a time that was natural, it's all built up and it comes out as a huge wave, and then it gets real ugly, right? And then it's like, once that happens, then you sit and you're in the aftermath of your reaction and you realize that you've given them even more control over you, right? So ignoring them isn't the way forward, and getting even isn't the way forward. Fortunately, there's a third option, right? And it's an option that's not intuitive. It's an option that decreases their power over us. It's an option that allows us to guard and to protect our hearts. And it's an option that positions us to be able to tell a much better story. Now, unsurprisingly, the way forward has been taught and modeled by Jesus. But it also is modeled in the Old Testament by a relatively unknown individual whose life intersected with the life of David. All right, now everybody who's grown up in church, you know King David, right? But this event doesn't take place when he's King David. And you've heard the stories of Shepherd Boy David that, pulled off all the stuff. This doesn't take place when he's Shepherd Boy David. This is kind of in the middle of those two Davids. It's when he's fugitive David. Because here's what's happened. Saul was king at the time. David shows up to bring his brothers some lunch at a battle one day. Goliath, Philistine, army is cowering in fear. He goes, takes care of Goliath, becomes a national hero, right? And as he becomes a national hero and is elevated, he's just got this element, this charisma, this natural leadership. People start being attracted to David. So much more so that they start being attracted to David more than Saul. So Saul sees this and he says, whoa, I need to bring this guy closer. Because you want to keep your friends close and your potential rivals even closer, right? So he calls them in and then he gets word, hey, Saul, I'm not sure if you knew about this, but some rogue prophet had gone to David's home when he was a child and anointed him the next king of Israel. Now, that's bad news if you're the current king of Israel. Because A, you want to finish out your days sitting on the throne, and B, you want the throne to then be passed on to your child, right? It's a dynasty. You want it to go. You want your name to last, right? So now, this is a real problem, right? Because this is messing with his dynasty. And so Saul tries to kill David. He's unsuccessful. David escapes, becomes a fugitive. He has to leave his family, is out living in the wilderness. He still has that leadership charisma about him. So he starts gathering other people to him. people who are like him, right? Guys who were mistreated or are outlaws. Guys who all, if you gave them the opportunity, could sit down, tell you their stories of injustice that happened under King Saul, right? And they're all outcasts, and they have no place to call home. And about 600 men gathered around David. And many of them had wives and family and all of their stuff with them. And so they were kind of roaming and being outlaws as this big, giant, massive people out in the wilderness, away from everybody, right? So David has all of this anger, this frustration build up inside of him, right? And like any of us, David is looking for a place to take that out, to release all of that frustration and anger that got built up. And in this story, he finally finds someone to unleash it all upon. And that's where we're going to pick up the story. Here's what happens. 1 Samuel chapter 25. There's a certain man named Maon who had property there at Carmel, and he was very wealthy. He had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep. Now to us, we're like, what does that mean? How wealthy is that? What do you even do with 1,000 goats? Yeah, well, back then, that was a whole lot. Maybe like, picture it. He had 1,000 cars, and this dude was in it, right? And he was shearing the sheep in Carmel, and his name was Nabal. Now, sheep shearing season. Yeah, that was a great time in ancient times for the wealthy people, because that's when the wealthy people found out how much more wealthy they were becoming, right? It was like a financial report. Nabal, he was going to find out, how much wealthy he was based on how many sheep that there actually were when they gave the actual count, how much product they were able to produce that they're now able to sell, right? This was a great day for Nabal because the money was rolling in. It goes on, it says, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband was harsh and mean, there's our word, in his dealings. In fact, his name actually meant heavy. Not like heavy like weight a lot heavy. Heavy like this dude's personality was a lot to deal with, to carry, right? A pain to deal. And it comes straight out and says it. He was mean. While David was in the wilderness, he heard that Nabal was shearing sheep. And knowing that a rich guy was getting ready to get richer, he sent 10 young men and said to them, go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him in my name. So when you show up, guys, make sure you drop my name, because I'm a bit of a big deal around here, right? So let him know, right? He says, say to him, long life to you, good health to you and your household, and good health to all that is yours. Now, this was a fairly traditional, formal ancient greeting that essentially was their version of, I come in peace. All right, and don't be up in arms. I come in peace. And he's like, then give him this message, right? He says, say to him, long life to you. Yeah, give him this message. When your shepherds were with us, we did not mistreat them. And the whole time they were at Carmel, nothing of theirs was missing. In other words, when your shepherds, Nabal, were out watching their sheep night after night after night after night, during that entire season, they were vulnerable. And Nabal, all of my men were around, and we were kind of watching out the entire time. And we never stole a thing. We never took anything, not a single sheep. So there's this sense, Nabal, that kind of, that your profit is due in part to the protection that we provided while we were out there. And Nabal, not only did we not steal from you, right? But we kept other rogues from stealing from you. Right? And don't just take my word for it. Tell them this, David said. Ask your own servants, and they will tell you. They'll tell you this is the case. We protected all that was yours. Therefore, be favorable towards my men, since we come at a festive time. And if you don't mind, please give your servants and your son David whatever you can find for them. In other words, Nabal, we know you're going to have extra, more than you'll ever be able to use up. And we kind of helped you create that extra. So, it would be great if you wouldn't mind sharing that a little bit. Throw just a little bit our direction. So when David's men arrived, they gave Nabal this message in David's name, and then they waited. And waited. And waited. Because Nabal was making them wait. Right? Now, while they're waiting on Nabal, let's just pause. I want to tell you a word about David. And this is not really something that ever, as I was growing up in Sunday school, was really emphasized. I don't even remember if this part was ever even really talked about. But when you read what is essentially his biography, Samuel, who's writing this, he's essentially David's biographer, telling his life story. When you read this biography of David, David was an extremely violent person. Right, we've got this idea of like King David, and God helped him do things, and man after God's own heart. And he was a violent individual. When he lived in the land of the Philistines, he would go into villages and raid them, and he would murder every single person so that there would be no one left to tell the story. In fact, this is how Samuel, who's essentially David's biographer, this is how he says it. In 1 Samuel 27, he says, whenever David attacked an area, he did not leave a man or woman alive, but took sheep and cattle, donkeys and camels, and clothes. So he was a violent, dangerous man, even by ancient standards. Meaning, Nabal should have known who he was dealing with. He should have known better. Surely he knew the reputation that David had as a warrior. So after keeping David's guys waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, he finally responds. Nabal answered David's servants, "Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse?" Which revealed to them in the question that he knew exactly who David was. And essentially he's saying, yeah, we've heard of him, but he's not really a big deal. In fact, he's just one of many. Here's what he says. Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days, as David had broken away from Saul and was hiding as a fugitive out in the wilderness. In other words, he's saying, hey guys, thanks for this request, but your master's a nobody. He's an outlaw. I didn't ask for his help. I didn't need his help, and I don't owe him anything. So no, I am not going to share with David and his band of merry men. It's not happening. And in fact, here's what he says. He says, why should I take my bread and water and the meat that I have slaughtered for my shears and give it to men coming from who knows where? So no, guys, I'm not giving you anything. You're dismissed. Be on your way. So here's what it says. It says, David's men turned around and went back. And when they arrived, they reported every word. Now, how do you think David responded to this mean person? Here's what it says. David said to his men, oh, well, it was worth a try. No, I can't get you 2 weeks in a row. No, David said to his men, each of you strap on your sword. So they did. And then there's this interesting detail given in the text. It says this, and David strapped his on as well. In other words, David was saying, you mess with me, you wrong me, you cross me, and you're going to pay. You're going to pay. Now, there's a reason that I think the author highlighted specifically that David picked up his sword, that David armed himself, because David's sword was like no other sword that there was. David's sword was actually a reminder that he did not have to return evil for evil. David's sword was a reminder that he did not have to take anything into his own hands. In fact, just out of curiosity, anybody happen to know where David got his sword? Anybody? David's sword was Goliath's sword. When David killed Goliath, he took his sword and kept it as his own. And that is what he carried around. So his sword that he carried was a constant reminder to him of God's provision and protection.